Hello there. Thank you for joining me. This is a hormone rescue series. Over the next series of webinars, there's 5 total. I'm going to tell you all the things that no one else will tell you about your hormones. And I call this the hormone rescue because when your hormones are in chaos and they're all out of balance, you feel like you need rescued because everything is affected by your hormones. So today we're going to talk about adrenal health and how you can say goodbye to stress and exhaustion. I start with this topic because I think that it is most prominent in women because we are overachievers and we're the ones who take the world on our shoulders. And I know this because I am one of those. I was one of those. I still have to manage that very carefully myself because we as women are unique. Like I said, we are responsible for a lot of things. And we have a lot of hormones that have to stay in balance for us to manage everything within ourselves, just like we're managing everything around us. So as we take on the world and we try to, be super mom, superhero, super wife, super employee, whatever those things are, we drain ourselves. And that's where adrenal fatigue starts to hit. And adrenal fatigue, yes, is an old term, but we're going to I use it because people know what that is. They've, started to associate what adrenal fatigue is. And so for the ease of that, and I may not be politically correct, but I'm going to use that term. It's just ingrained in me. But we become very physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted from all of the things that we do and from that hormone imbalance. And so, what I want to do is, I want to help people to feel better. I want to help you to lose weight, have more energy, and stop that emotional roller coaster you're on. And I am Marcia Jones. In case you don't know me, I'm a nurse practitioner. For functional medicine is what I do and what I love. Hormones is my thing. And it's because I've been there. So that's how I got into this. And that's how I know where you're at. And I know how you're feeling and what you're going through. Because it hit me when I was in my 30s, my early 30s. I was in the prime of my life. Everything was going great for me. I had, finished my degree. I'd finished my degree a long time ago, but I, had opened my own practice in, my local community, what I'd always wanted to do. I was, primary care provider here. It was my life's dream. And there I was doing it. I was so happy. And I always tell people, this is who I am. It isn't what I do. And so helping people just becomes second nature to me. That's just I have to. It's like it's an impulse, compulse, whatever you say. I have to help people. I can't not answer you and tell you how to make yourself feel better. It's just not me if I can't help people. So here I was, all this is happening for me and I was exhausted. And I just had lost my energy. I had lost my drive, my desire to do what I wanted to do. One day I was sitting at my desk and I was like, if I have to get up and go down that hallway one more time, I don't think I'm going to make it. And I didn't want to see people, even though it was my passion. So I started researching what the heck could be going on with me. I went to my primary care doctor first, and he's like, Marsha, I don't know what's happening with you. He's like, all the tests we're running are normal. But in addition to that extreme exhaustion, I'd been getting some weird symptoms, things like numbness in my face, some tingling in my arms. When I say exhaustion, I don't think I can put it into words, the exhaustion that I had and weakness. So, all these different symptoms, he said, okay, let's go neurology, send you to a neurologist. Scans of my head, more tests. Marsha, everything's fine. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you need an endocrinologist. Okay. So I go to the endocrinologist. Endocrinologist says, Marsha, I don't know what to tell you. All your stuff is fine. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you need an antidepressant for a little while. Maybe you need to get more sleep. And I'm like, I, there's nothing, I'm not depressed. So I was like, okay, I appreciate all your help, but I know there's something wrong and I'm going to figure it out. And so that started my journey towards this hormone thing because I knew I wasn't menopausal. I was in my early 30s. But what I discovered through functional medicine is that it was a different hormone. It was my adrenals that were burnt out. That is what had happened to me. And I'm going to go through all of this with you as to where all these crazy symptoms came from and what adrenal burnout really is and what it means and how you can turn it all back around and save yourself. I have, and now I'm 100% better. Like I hate to say cured because it wasn't like a disease, but I'm in better shape now than I've been in my entire life because I figured out what had happened. I had burnt myself out, finishing my degree, working full time, going to school full time. I had an amazing child I was taking care of. So, all of those things, although I thought I was handling it, had caught up to me. So, this is where we start into the rest of the story. So I want you to understand why you're feeling that burnt out, stressed out, miserable, moody, irritable. You can't lose weight and you can't sleep, right? Any of that ring a bell? How stress is affecting your health and how you can turn it all around. So, like I said, you don't hit the wall like I did, or if you have hit the wall, let's bring you back from the wall. So, but why are you here? What intrigued you about this? Have you hit the wall? Are you tired, miserable, moody, irritable? Maybe you can't sleep, even though all day long, all you can think about is getting home to your bed, and then you get in bed and you can't sleep. Are you gaining weight? Maybe you're anxious for no reason. You're getting heart palpitations and you're nervous and you can't explain it. Or you just don't care anymore. Your give a care is gone. You feel like you're falling apart. You don't know why. Like everything's an internal chaos. Maybe it's your relationships. Maybe you're starting to snap at people and not meaning to. And you're starting to have suffering, whether it is, with a spouse, coworkers, friends, because of the state that you're in, that your mental health is not good. You're trying to figure it all out and you keep hearing everything's normal. And even though you feel like you're losing your mind, no one can figure it out for you. So, my guess is you're here because you think I can help you figure it out. And I think you're right. And that is my goal. That is my desire, is to help you to figure it out so that you can feel as good as I do and make the changes that I had to make to bring it all back. So could you have HPA dysfunction? And HPA dysfunction, also known as adrenal dysfunction, adrenal fatigue, adrenal burnout, whatever you want to call it, that this is the same thing. But HPA dysfunction means hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So the reason that they changed that terminology, it all boils down to the same, but was because they wanted people to understand that it was a bigger picture, that there was the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland involved as well as the adrenals. So here's some of the symptoms that you can have with this HPA dysfunction: fatigue, anxiety, low blood sugar, high blood sugar, a craving for sweets, depression, migraines, hair loss, palpitations, bloating, dizziness, irritability, dry skin, urinary tract infections, yeast infections, low libido, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, brain fog, poor concentration, PMS, weight gain, poor sleep, hot flashes. Do you think that I covered it all? And do you understand now, if you have any or all of these symptoms, why you feel like you're losing your mind? But please stay tuned because you're going to love this, because I'm going to show you how they're all connected. This here, what we call the 4 women of adrenal burnout. I love this picture because it helps you to take a look at it. Which one of these women are you? In the beginning, you're superwoman, you're wired for speed, cortisol levels are high, everything's just like banging around along. You're like, "Oh, I'm good, I got this, running on adrenaline, I'll sleep when I'm dead." Okay, well, that's the beginning. Well, then things start to slow down a little bit. Now you're like, "Woof, okay, I'm starting to get tired, get a little anxious, can't sleep." You're starting to get some infections, maybe some allergies, and that's unusual. And then you start going into the next phase of this, wired and tired too. Well, now your emotions are all over the place. You're more tired, more anxious, aching, pain. The nerves are frazzled. This is where, that last nerve, somebody's going to pluck it right now, and everything just irritates and annoys you. Then we hit the wall. Okay, when you hit the wall, we've got situation critical. That's when you have no pleasure in anything. You don't want to get out of bed. You're sluggish. You're overwhelmed. But this isn't depression. Okay, this isn't depression. This is burnout. And stress is one of the main causes of this HPA dysfunction. And stress is everywhere: work, finances, family. You can't sleep. That's a stressor. You're always attached to your phone. That's a stressor. You never get to shut down. There's always something pulling at you from every single direction. That is stress. Then you start having health problems. That's stress. Then you start feeling moody. That's stress. Then your menstrual cycles start going all over the place. That's stress. You name it, there's stress everywhere. And how do you get a grip on it? And this stress, what is causing all of the chaos in this stressful state that you're in? Well, it's cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. This is the one that can increase your blood pressure. anxiety. It can make you gain weight around the midsection. Your menstrual cycles are all over the place. You're decreasing bone density, so you have osteoporosis. Your immune system's affected. That's how you start getting those frequent infections. And worst case scenario, ladies, it can lead to cancer. Then we have depression, increased blood sugar because cortisol raises blood sugar. Then that leads to diabetes, brain fog, poor sleep. All of these things are a path to destruction. You might start off with just a little stress, that just starts to spiral out of control. And then all of these things are happening to you. So you have to understand how they're all connected. So cortisol, this one that we're talking about, is an adrenal hormone. And then there's other hormones, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details of it, but you have other hormones like pregnenolone, DHEA, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, insulin, thyroid hormones. All of these are required, or what require your cortisol to be in balance, to be produced correctly. Because cortisol is that life fight or flight, hormone that was, saving us from saber-toothed tigers back in the day. And, we don't need saber-toothed tigers to be saved from now. But that's what, it is. It's our life-saving hormone. So if we're trying to save our life and we feel like we're in danger, the body's not going to be producing as much of the other hormones. And so that's how these start to decrease because of cortisol. And then when your cortisol is burnt out, all of them are burnt out. So this is just a picture of how that's happening. Where everything is normal in the beginning and then it progresses through those phases because your cortisol spikes and everything else drops, including the cortisol in the end. So in this first stage, I call this the road to burnout because it happens gradually. Okay. This is happening over time. And that's why you have to understand this. And so whatever phase you're in, you have to have hope that we can get it back. It's just you take about 3 to 6 months per phase to get yourself back. So in this first initial phase, the adrenal glands are releasing that hormone cortisol and adrenaline, which is another adrenal hormone, which keeps you ready for that fight or flight, to flee from that perceived threat. And this is where you feel that surge of energy and alertness as you're gearing up to handle it. This is where you're in that take on the world phase because your blood sugar naturally rises to give you that energy to do what you need to do. That adrenaline makes you alert to do what you need to do. But over time, we start going into this stage 2 and 3. So if your stress keeps happening, the body enters that resistance phase. The adrenals continue to release their hormones to help us cope with all that stress, but the effort is leading to exhaustion and fatigue as your body is now struggling to keep its balance and to keep up. This is where those symptoms are happening, the fatigue, the insomnia, the mood swings. Everything's becoming more and more noticeable during this phase. And then we hit the actual burnout. In this final phase, this is when our adrenals are like, I'm done. I'm tapped out. I can't do anymore. That's where you hit the wall and you're like, I just don't care anymore. So hormone production declines, all hormone production. And our body's ability to cope with that stress goes down. That's where we're more snippy. That's where we're snapping. That's where we're just like, we can't even stand ourselves some days. This is where that severe pain comes in, severe fatigue, chronic pain, a weakened immune system. This is danger phase, ladies. Because if you don't fix this here and you don't intervene, that adrenal exhaustion can impact your health, your life, and it can decrease your immune system to where you're starting to get chronic diseases and even cancer. It's real. So let me go over how this HPA dysfunction affects a lot of the things that we talked about, the symptoms that brought you here, the symptoms that you want to know more about. So stress increases your glucose, which increases your insulin. Insulin is a growth hormone. Insulin also causes inflammation. So those two things are going to increase your weight. Then it interferes with your thyroid function. And now your metabolism is going to slow down because your thyroid isn't keeping up. So when your metabolism slows down, you start to put on more weight. Now you're putting on more weight. These fat cells, they make estrogen, which leads to estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance is also an inflammatory state because this estrogen that's coming from the fat cells isn't the normal estrogen that we need that is functioning properly. This is that extra estrogen, that inflammatory type estrogen that is causing us to feel like we're spiraling out of control. and our body doesn't feel safe anymore. And so our body can only lose weight if we feel safe. So if we're in that crisis mode, we're not losing weight, we're gaining weight. Then we have the gut. So HPA dysfunction and this cortisol being up all the time starts to lead to a leaky gut and inflammation in the gut lining and food intolerances. And so when your gut's inflamed, you're not absorbing your nutrients that you need. And when you're not absorbing those nutrients, there's another stressor to the body because your body needs those nutrients to function. And now we can't tolerate our food because it's causing inflammation also, and your body's reacting to some of the foods that you're eating. The gut has a lot to do with our serotonin and our moods. So now that's being impaired. Your immune system is being impaired because there's a lot that the gut does with the immune system. So if your gut is impaired and your immune system's impaired, then you start getting things like autoimmune disorders. This is where those ANA antibodies, if you've had those checked, or you start thinking that you might have an autoimmune dysfunction, it could just be your gut. And fixing your gut can change the autoimmune dysfunction. Now, if you always feel bloated or you have irritable bowel symptoms, your diarrhea, your constipation, your belly's always angry. That's because stress interferes with the lining of the gut and that inflammation. And like I said, that you can't absorb those nutrients. Now let's talk about the sex hormones, okay? So you don't have any libido either because a decrease in those adrenal hormones, I told you, decreases your sex hormones because that path where the hormones are all connected was starting at the top. If any one of those isn't right, then every one of those underneath falls. It's like a domino effect. And if your body is trying to save itself, it could care less about your libido. So now you don't have any sex hormones, you don't have any libido, and you're just like fed up. Like, what the heck? I'm supposed to be in the prime of my life and I have no libido, right? So this has to be taken care of. And then that decrease in your sex hormones, that starts to affect your menstrual cycles. And it starts to make you feel like you're in menopause. So this HPA dysfunction, this adrenal dysfunction fatigue is actually mimicking menopause. These could be like perimenopause symptoms, but honestly, what it is your adrenals just aren't keeping up. And if we, work on the adrenals and the cortisol, then everything else is going to fall into place. So now there's sleep. Okay, you can't sleep. Why? That's because high cortisol levels lead to insomnia. Because when the cortisol levels are high, remember that glucose goes high. Well, your glucose is your source of energy. So if your glucose is high, you can't fall asleep because you feel like you need to be ready to go. Then that high cortisol is also something that's causing you to wake up at night because you're ready, you're on alert. So it doesn't take much of anything to wake you up. So there you are. Now you're up at night. And then it alters your circadian rhythm. So now that your circadian rhythm is off because you're not sleeping right, your hormones aren't being secreted. And I don't know if you know this, but hormones come out at a certain time every day. Like cortisol, we're supposed to have cortisol arise in the morning so that we wake up. That's natural. And then our cortisol levels stay up during the day and they gradually decline at night so that our cortisol levels are lowest at bedtime. So that's time for us to go to sleep. And that's when your melatonin is secreted when it's supposed to be, is at night and when it's time to go to sleep to help you fall into a restful sleep. And then all the other hormones, I'm not going to go into when they're all secreted throughout the day, but just so you know, there's a cycle. And when our cycle is interrupted, everything else is interrupted. So now everyone is in a different phase. And that's why we do things in functional medicine like advanced hormone testing. It's critical. We do basic tests too, and we look at that in a different light than what you may get a review of in your primary care review of blood work. But advanced testing is critical. So depending on what phase you're in, you need to determine what is the best plan for you. And that's what we do with functional medicine, is we work together to find out what phase you're in, what's been impacted, how we're going to start to turn that around, because we have to do it in a certain manner or you're not going to get better. You're actually going to risk harming yourself. Because I know a lot of times people will go on these crazy fads and, they read it on the internet, and what they don't realize is that it's increasing toxins or increasing stress on the body and making everything worse. So there's a method to the madness of what we do in functional medicine. You need balance, you need sleep. You don't need a strict diet or extreme measures. That's just so not the way it works. The hormone hierarchy. So when I said, what do we do first? Adrenals first, always adrenals. Then we can take care of the thyroid. Your thyroid cannot be managed until your adrenals are. And then after that, the sex hormones. So I can't give you hormone therapy if your adrenals and your thyroid aren't functioning correctly, because then you're not going to respond to the hormone treatment right. Or if you do respond to the treatment, it's only going to be short lived and then you're going to get a crash. So why do you want to waste your time doing that and feel like you're chasing your tail? When you work at things the right way, adrenals, thyroid, sex hormones, everything falls into place. You start to age in reverse and you start to love your life again and have energy. This is an example of one of those advanced tests that I really like. So what this shows is how the hypothalamus and the pituitary work towards the adrenal gland. So there's that HPA axis. And then the adrenal gland puts out that DHEA and puts out the cortisol. And so DHEA is our anti-aging, our youth hormone. So we want that one to be at a good level. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see these are examples of a cortisol pattern. So cortisone is your stored cortisol, and then cortisol is your active form of cortisol. So you'll see this example, this person, it's extremely elevated here. And so this person's on edge. This would be a stage 1. So they're still in the beginning of that fight or flight response. So we have time to really rein it in here. And their melatonin is normal. That's another thing on this test. So that means things haven't gotten too far out of control yet. Here's another example. This is someone who is, late stage 3 or stage 4. This is exhaustion. This is a burnout phase because this person doesn't even have enough cortisol over here to really get out of bed in the morning or sustain throughout the day. It's just all they can do to make it through the day. Here's another example of testing. The reason I put this on is I don't want you to feel like you need to get a degree in this, but I just want you to notice that this pregnenolone and adrenal hormone here on the top then comes down into things like our progesterone and our estrogen. Over here, DHEA and our testosterone, then down into the estrogen, and this has to do with estrogen pathways. So estrogen can be good or estrogen can be bad. And if we're under a lot of stress, our estrogen, and like I said, that the fat cells that we're holding on to and the inflammation can turn our estrogen into a dangerous weapon, and it can literally cause DNA damage. So this is why it's so important for us to address everything and to look at that whole big picture. So now do you see it's all connected? Can you see how complicated all this is? Don't stress. There's ways to turn it around. You just need the right guidance and to find the right answers. And that's what I'm here to help you do. It's a slow and steady process, especially depending on how much damage is done and what phase you're in. You just got to hit the pause button and remember it's not a race. It can take a full 1 to 2 years for recovery if you're in that final burnout phase. Remember, 3 to 6 months for each phase. These are the things that help you to turn it around. Hormone-focused nutrition, anti-inflammatory foods, improving your circadian rhythm, supporting a healthy microbiome. That's that gut. Stress management, thyroid support, hormone therapy, adaptogens, all of these things are what we do. But you also need to remember to laugh, have some self-love, get support from others, and some guided activity, because it's not about going out there and hitting the gym with everything you've got. And that's one of the things that I do with my ladies is I teach you what to do, how to exercise appropriately and not kill yourself. I don't believe in anything extreme. It just doesn't work out. It's one step at a time. The right plan can change your life, get you off your medicines, help you to lose weight, relax, and actually sleep. So adrenal dysfunction does have a significant impact on your life. Chronic disease, including cancer, diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, all of that comes from adrenal dysfunction. Emotional distress, it affects your relationships. There's poor work productivity. You start to have financial loss, medical costs. You might lose your job because of, the extreme state of chaos you're in. Then there's chronic pain. All of these things can be fixed. Just think how your life would be different if you could, get rid of that high anxiety and overwhelm and become more relaxed and focused. Those mood swings and irritability became stable, positive moods. If your struggles with weight started with losing weight with ease, or if you from not being able to sleep to restful nights, if you don't care and you've hit the wall to actually living a life of vitality and wanting to be a part of your life again and being back into your family's life, from going to being wore out and tired to having an abundant amount of energy. Can you imagine that? You want that back? So if you hit the wall and you need to look beyond the norm, you've got to trust your instincts. You've got to go past the normal. Our society is getting sicker and sicker. It's terrible what I'm seeing, the trends that I have watched happen over the last 30 years of my career. And hormone related cancers are on the rise. Breast cancer is the number one cause of death in women right now. It's finally beat heart disease, and that's not a good thing. We are currently in an absolute state of crisis when it comes to health. And functional medicine is truly the answer for those who want to invest in their life and their future and make changes. The old system isn't working. We've proven that. We've seen it over and over. We need something different. I personally have helped thousands of women break free from that exhaustion. I'd love to help you. If you're interested in doing that, functional medicine is for every woman. Every woman, we can dig deep. We can find out what your story is, where it all started to go wrong, and how to turn it all around. No matter what is bothering you, we can find the root cause. So if that's of interest to you, this is how you do that. This is how you take some action. You book a hormone rescue strategy session with me. This is where we spend about 20 minutes going over what's happening with you, the state of chaos. I ask you some questions. You get to tell part of your story, and we start to think, okay, what is going on? What can we do? And this isn't the full on. This is just, a brief glimpse into what I can do for you, what I can help you to do, if this is a good fit for you. It's the starting phase. And then if you decide to work with me, then we figure out how to do that and make that happen. So you do that by hormones.marshajonesnp.com/book now. Or if you can't remember all of that, you can just go to my website, marshajonesnp.com, click on that book now button, and it's going to take you to how to get in touch with me. It's going to get you to my calendar so that you can schedule that appointment. And I do hope you take action. I do hope that you see the severity of this and you understand that functional medicine is the path to true health and hormone balance. And that even though we're nothing but a bunch of hormones, we're complicated ladies, that we are still not that much of a mystery. You just need the right person to put you in the right direction and turn your life back around. So thank you so much for listening and joining me. And I do hope that you view some of the other recordings that I have in this series for women in hormonal health. You guys take care.